We're rolling.
We're going. Zoom in on the picture that we have in front of us here. That's a picture of some of the kids at the school in Farmdale that we went to school with. Some friends, but some of them are still friends. We wonder how many still be alive. We don't know for sure. But anyway, beside the point, I want to emphasize the fact that Farmdale was a two-room country school. And that was it. All 8 grades were in the 2 rooms. We had the 1st through the 4th in one room, and the 4th to the 5th and the 8th in the next room. And I can remember vividly how wonderful it was when I got to be the 5th grade, because I was the big guys, and we got to move to the next room. All those little kids are in the other room. They're all, no, we don't pay attention to them anymore, you know. We're the big guys here, it's us. 5, 6, 7, 8, this is it. All in one room. It's crazy. Can you imagine going to school? I think back, the biggest class I was ever in was in Farmdale. I think there might have been 8 in my class. And as I mentioned earlier, when I graduated, I was a valedictorian of the class at the time. And of course, there were only seven students in the class. And my mother was a personal friend of the teacher, of my teacher at the time. I think had kind of inroads along the way. There was somebody knew somebody. You know, I'm sure. I hope they weren't sorry about that decision made later on. But anyway, beside the point. I had a lot of good experiences at Farmdale from time to time. But I think the thing that I never really got a lot of help as far as academic work out of there. I learned to do a lot of things by myself. But academics was not my kind of thing. I don't know whether it's because the teacher I had or what, but I'm sorry for many of the things that I did not get. She tried her best, I'm sure. But how you could teach 10 kids at one time or 30 kids in one room, unbelievable, huh? You guys all had experience of that stuff because you were teachers, not me. I'm the only black sheep of the bunch. I was not a teacher, although I thought sometimes I would like to have been a teacher one time or another. I like to teach people things, you know. Anyway, you guys tell us about your experiences at the school. We'll fill it in from there, you know.
Just stop just real quick.
Okay, who's next?
Lois, you want to say anything?
Yes, I spent 5 years at Farmdale. There were 5 students in our grade, each grade. Wanda Leslie, Edith Berger, Mary Payson, Kamicki, and me. The 5 of us went all the way through. We became, of course, very good friends, always. Through a lifetime of seeing each other, it was like a relative almost, when we would see each other later. We were that close. We spent our learning years in what we called the bench, up in front of the teacher's desk. If it was our grade turn to have a lesson, we would go up and sit in the bench. And the teacher had the desk in front of the bench, and she would then read and tell, and had a big chalkboard, tell us and talk to us and work with us on our specific lesson. While the other 3 grades would be in the back of the bench in their rows, and everyone had a row, the 6th grade row, the 7th grade, and the 8th grade row. We had about 25 students to the class altogether. When they finished with our lesson, we got up and would go back to our seats. Then she would call the next class up, and they would get up and go and sit on the bench and be given a lesson. In the meantime, if you needed help, it wasn't available because she was busy teaching another grade. We were taught to not pay any attention to what was being said by the teacher up in the front, because that was not our lesson time. A few years later, when I went to the city schools and all of the children in that class were in the 8th grade, we were all together. Sometimes the teacher would be teaching and she would call on a student. She would call on me. I sometimes didn't answer her. And then they had been told by the teacher, that I had been trained for years to not pay any attention to the teacher unless I was up in the front on the bench. I was not to pay, and the teacher realized and understood that. But that was the way it was. You
I
couldn't
remember a bench.
listen and pay
I do.
attention to a
Mother had a
teacher.
bench, yes.
Did you remember a bench, Raymond?
No.
I don't think Mrs. Clark taught by that one.
No.
Well, the bench became precarious. Now, Mary Payson and I loved to do acrobatics outside, on the swings and on the bars.
Yeah.
Well, we decided to rock the bench. And so she was at one end of the bench and I was at
Like
the
a
other.
teeter-totter.
Yes, and we rocked the bench back and forth. And of course, you know what happened. The bench tipped over and all five of us went over backwards in the class. It didn't go over well with the teacher. I think then
Who
other
was the
kids
teacher?
thought it was so funny they
Who
were
was the
going to
teacher,
try it.
Lois?
So they probably moved the bench.
Who was your teacher at that time?
Velma was the teacher, but before Velma was a lady named Mrs. Klein. And Mrs. Klein, and then before her, not Sherwood, I'm sorry, it was Miss Bacon. She was the board of the trustees' sister. And she was a missionary from India
Yeah.
who had taught girls' school. And she came to Farmdale. They had no more jobs for her to do in India. So she came to Merced and started teaching in Farmdale with no experience. And that's what I had her in the 4th grade.
Okay.
And it was a very difficult time for all of us.
I don't remember.
The poor lady didn't make it past the first year. Mrs. Klein came, and Mrs. Klein took over. Some of them farm boys. Some of those boys were probably 14.
Yeah.
You know, they were not young little boys, 10 or 11.
But it should have been in high
They
school.
were full-grown boys that were doing farm work at home, and they were kind of difficult to handle. For Mrs. Klein and Miss Bacon, who had never been around that kind of
Boys, yeah.
boys, they pretty much were running the school and it was pretty tough. And finally, Velma Clark came the following year, and Velma had been the oldest of a big family of 7 children, and she knew how to handle everybody. She did not have any trouble with the boys after that. But that was a real problem. Hiring people, teachers, when they had very little money to pay them.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a tough time for everyone.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would have young people just out of college, but they didn't have any way of getting way out in the country. You had to have a car,
Right.
and those young people didn't have cars. The Farmdale was about 3 or 4 miles out of town.
Right. Right.
And Farmdale was a little school off by itself, and you had to have a car.
Built in 1911. I remember looking at that sign.
It was
Oh, right,
1911.
every morning we ran up the
Out there in
sign.
the front, right there in the front.
Right there. in
right
front,
by the
1911,
flagpole.
Farmdale
Right,
School,
up there.
1911.
And Farmdale School, because it was so alone, it was the center of activity of all the farm people around
Yes.
there. When we would have graduation, it was a big deal.
Boy,
For the 8th grade, it was very formal. We had parties, some parties that were held there. I don't remember whether Thanksgiving or whatever, I don't remember. But we would have a few outgoing parties, like Flag Day or something that was, for the,
Decoration Day.
yes, things that were for the national.
Yeah, right.
We would have, they all would come, though everybody in the community would come. Now you have to remember too, that sometimes 1 or 2 of the boys would bring their horses. They would ride a horse to school. The others, all of us walked. And it didn't matter whether you were 3 miles away or half a mile away.
No,
You
no
walked.
bus.
Everybody walked.
That's right. Or you rode your bike.
Later on, they rode bikes, but when I went, no one had a bike. Everybody walked. It was this was 1930 when I started, and no one had a bike.
That's right.
everyone walked. And it was a very important place to go, school in Farmdale. That's about it for me.
You know, it's interesting where the school was located, right on Tyler and Mission.
Yeah.
And it's located in just in a corner, a portion.
Right.
I wondered to myself if that location of the school had to be built in that location had something to do with that land grant concept, that in the section, would
Right.
a portion of that section in the north, and the northwest corner or section would be devoted to building a school. And I wondered if that's why the school was where it
why
was,
there.
not somewhere else in some other section, but at that particular place. And I wondered about that
Well, who owned the
myself.
property around the school?
Wires owned
Some
the
of
one to the
Some
east of it.
did,
Some of it, but not that, yeah, that
not
extra.
that
They
section.
had that big one right next to the school on the east side of it.
Yeah, that was interesting, you know, going to Farmdale for myself, I don't really remember an awful lot about learning while I was at Farmdale. The one concept that I still maintain in my thinking was that Faye Dyer, bless her heart, helped me understand what it meant when you looked out and saw that the earth and the sky seemed to come together. It was the horizon. I was just so amazed about that. And I always remember that telling me, that's called the horizon, you know? Well, that's about one of the few things I remember about learning in Ferndale. I couldn't read worth a lick, it was terrible. You know, I couldn't understand half the stuff that was going on. But I really did like the opportunity to talk to people and kids and play. We had wonderful opportunities when we were there to be together. And I still, even when I was an adult working out of Winton, one of the fellows who worked with the Merced Dairy and Ice was a student at Winton at Farmdale when I was there too. Bill used to come by and we'd have great chats all the time.
Right.
And he was so excited one time. He said, "Ray, have you stopped learning how to play the harmonica?" Does anybody remember the harmonica?
Speaking of the harmonica, boy, I remember Lois,
That's right.
you guys went on the radio.
Yes,
You
we
would-
started the harmonica at Farmdale, and our group, our five of us, was 4 or 5 of us.
Four of you, I think.
Yeah, the 4 of us. It was Mary and Wanda and Edith and I.
Do you
We
know-
were able to get a harmonica. It was donated to us.
That's right.
We didn't buy them. But we learned how to read music a little bit. And we really learned very simple songs.
You know what you played?
Yeah, we played Old Susanna, Home Sweet Home. We played all the old
I
classics.
remember when you played on the radio.
So then, when I heard that the KYOS radio, which was new here in
Oh
town,
boy, I'll say.
it was 1932 or 33, well, it just started. And they were asking schools if they had anything to contribute for Saturday morning's program, for school program. Well, I thought it would be wonderful if we could go and play the harmonica. And we did. We called the KYOS and they said, "Why, great, bring those kids over and we'll have them in at 10 o'clock Saturday morning." I was so excited. We got Grandma to bring us. Grandma loaded up the car with all 4 of us
Yep, we all went.
and took us to KYOS. Of course, we'd never been inside a radio station. It was like going to the greatest music hall in San Francisco or New York for us to go to this brand new radio station. We'd never even been in one before, let alone be heard on one. But we'd had to wait a week or more for our turn to be on the radio. By that time, I was just so, I could hardly talk. I was so excited. We got up there and started playing, and several of us were off key, especially me. I could not get really started with it. But then when we got really going, we didn't want to stop. We just played 3 or 4, and he said, "That's fine now, ladies, that was just great. thank you, from Farmdale and Merced. I thought it was the most exciting thing that ever happened to me.
I thought it was wonderful, because I remember this one of the songs you played,
Yes,
Santa Lucia.
yes,
Oh, I love
Santa
that
Lucia.
song, you guys played that thing, that's so wonderful, to play that. But you played Marine Band, key of C, harp.
All right, we're going.
Okay, whose turn?
Okay.
Ray, you said something?
Yeah, I was, with the relationships that we built, I'm thinking about harmonicas,
Yes.
but other kinds of things that we did. And I remember building relationships with guys up on the playground often. We had a great baseball team, and you know, it's interesting because there are families there that we grew up with, and we now see them as adults, and how many of them have been so successful. I'm sure there were many that were not, but when you think of some of the families that were there at the school at the time that we were there, and the things they're doing now, and their families have been
Right.
so successful. I think of the Plaginza family. It's gained
Oh my God.
marvelous record of Derek working with. But can you remember when they first came? And we
Oh.
were at Farmdale,
Yeah.
and we stood on where we live on Mission Avenue, and saw their house burning
Yeah.
over on the next
Oh
street
my
over.
God.
The Plaginza, they had nothing, and that family grew and changed. But think of Tom Mayer and the Mayer family.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, the successes that he had, and things that he was able to do. And I think of the Brewer family,
Yes,
Gene Brewer
Yeah.
and his family, and how successful those people have become. It's amazing out
yeah,
of that group of people out in that little Farmdale school. There was, you know,
you
all
remember
of
the,
these people grew up.
yeah,
Look at the Hansons.
Bertuccios. Do you know that one of the girls who was a board member at Farmdale School now is a Bertuccio? She is the daughter or the granddaughter of one of those boys,
Is
Andy
that
or
right?
Johnny or
Yeah.
whatever, Bertuccio. They stayed in the area.
Stayed there.
They worked there and lived there. And kept, but it's amazing.
oh, you
I'm
know,
always impressed
remember
by
the
that.
fellow that we found that lived a block from Mother's, who was the lawyer? You knew who it was. He was at our school.
Oh, Alan Emmert was the one, another
Emmett,
one.
and they
That's
were the
right.
poorest people I
Wow.
had ever seen. The father arrived on they had bought a little piece of land across the street from
Right.
Farmdale. And they built a little shack. The father built.
Well, they had a tent, it was a tent
Yes,
with
it was
wooden
a
sides
tent.
on it.
At first, that's what they lived
That's
in.
right.
And they had about 4 children, 4 or 5 children.
Burl was in the class with me, the oldest daughter,
Yes.
Burl Everett was there. I don't remember the other kids, I remember her, the only one, smartest kid, she was the smartest kid in the class.
Yes.
She should have been the valedictorian, not me, but I don't think she was, they left sometime before,
Yeah.
she was done in the
Yeah.
8th grade with us.
They moved probably in, but became a lawyer.
I know
He
that.
was the oldest, and he lived just a block from Mother. later on.
Was he the district attorney of Merced
They were all
County?
very bright people, but they had arrived desperately poor.
That's right, for
I think they
Oklahoma.
came from Oklahoma
They did.
with the dry,
Dust Bowl,
yeah,
Dust Bowl
Dust
people.
Bowl.
the
Yep,
Dust Bowl.
Yep.
They were a fabulous family.
Amazing
Succeeded.
people. Yep,
Absolutely incredible.
yep.
You know, it's just, those kind of things last and stay with you forever.
Sure.
You know, I can think the Leslie family that came in, and who can forget John Vassar? My goodness me.
Oh, the Vassars are
And
right.
George Minges and Donald Minges, and George Minges used to
Oh,
drive us
yes.
all around in his truck to baseball games. At that time, we could ride in the bed. He'd just load us up in the bed of his old Dodge truck, and we'd drive over to, from where we were at Farmdale, he'd take us over to McSwain School. Or where we were, we would go over to
Merced
Merced
College.
College
Merced College.
School.
That's right.
Or we'd go out to Tuttle,
Pioneer.
or somewhere, you know, and we'd have baseball games. And Bob used to be the catcher.
I was
He-
the catcher, I was
he's
the only
the
catcher, because nobody else would do it but me. I was
right.
dumb enough to stand back there, but I had a mask and a mitt and a little chest protector, that was about it, you know.
Yeah.
And the guy that was the pitcher, remember him?
Joe Plaginza was,
Plaginza, Frank or
pitcher.
Joe, I'm not
He's
sure.
the only pitcher we had, I think.
Yep.
Well, Frank,
Nobody else could
wasn't it?
throw the ball.
Yep.
And the Paysons, the Payson
Mason, oh
family.
gosh,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. Oh, yeah, they've been.
It's
you know,
amazing for people that grew up in that school.
We're talking
and been
about
so successful.
all the people that were successful. Look at ourselves.
Well,
Well,
We were the same We were the same, we had the same money or less or whatever. And,
Or less.
and we all came the same way. I mean, we were all, whatever the spirit was, within all of these people we're talking about, we're
Right.
doing the same thing. Because it was a spirit of, we talk about the fact that it was hard to learn things and we didn't learn things, or it was, but we still had that spirit of we're going to be successful. I don't ever
Really?
remember thinking for myself that, I guess I must have been a dreamer, because I always knew that things were gonna work out and I was gonna do some things I wanted to do. And of course I loved school. I enjoyed going to school, and I enjoyed my friends that were there. I was the only girl they let play on the baseball team when I was in the sixth or seventh, whatever I was, the 5th grade, because I left in the 6th grade. But I remember those things, and I remember all the people you're talking about. They were older than I, but then their brothers and sisters were my age. They were families that we knew,
Yeah,
members
we
of
knew all the
of the
families.
families. And I had mother as a teacher in the 3rd grade. And then in the 4th grade, I remember when mother was teaching me, in the 3rd grade, everybody got out at 2 o'clock in the primary grades, and the upper grades got out at 3 or whatever. Well, mother that year also taught 4th grade social studies from the something about machines, but I remember sitting with her and doing that. So when then in the 4th grade, and I think it started, Bob and Ray and I were all in the same classroom.
Yeah.
We had 2 teachers. I was in the 4th and 5th grade, faced one way. 6th, 7th, and 8th faced the other.
That's right.
They were not team teaching under any circumstances,
No.
but everybody she taught, Mrs. Baldwin taught, Mrs. Clark taught. And they had that for the years that I was there. Then I left in the 6th grade. I think it was probably the next year they built on the carport, they added the room. But
Yeah.
can you imagine, there must have been, well, if there were 5 to a grade,
Yeah.
there were 30, it was close to
There's
that.
30 kids in that one room.
And I never remember any disturbance. I never remember the other teacher influence having any problem with them
I
teaching.
don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
Except that group that went and rocked the bench.
That was Bob. Bob, you were in the 8th grade. You had to be, because Ray was in the
Yeah.
6th, and I was in the 4th. And so those things I remember. I went through 1st grade through 5th grade at Farmdale. Now in the 5th grade, I don't remember it being a double room. Double teachers. I think that's probably when I'm not sure.
Built on the
They
extra.
may have started building that.
The 7th
but-
and 8th grade went out to the other room, to that extension,
yeah,
the carport
yeah.
out there.
And so we had one teacher in the
Yes,
room.
yeah.
And
Do you want to say anything about academics that we learned while we were there?
yes. What did we-
Academics.
Kind of serious. We would have the Stanford Binet test at the end of every grade. And I didn't, my first year, I had just returned from the city schools. And I took the Stanford Binet the end of that year. I did very well. It showed that I had learned like I was supposed to when
Yeah,
I was with the city schools.
yeah.
But every year after that at Farmdale, I was lower. I went down. I was not improving in the Stanford Binet test. It was really a shocker because I had been going up. And each time, the 3 years that I was at Farmdale, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, no, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, I went down. The 8th grade, I went into town because they thought I'd better know a few more people than Mary and Edith and Wanda when I was going to go to Merced High School. So I rode in with Grandma every day
That's right.
and went to the 8th grade. At the end of the 8th grade, I took a Stanford Binet test. Again, they didn't have it when I had started, so I took it at the end. And we were to be judged then whether we would be mentally able to take an academic course at the high school.
Right.
You had to be sure. Well, the teacher announced in front of everybody in the classroom, well, Lois took the Stanford Binet test. She came out with a reading score of a junior in high school.
Really?
That's right.
Wow,
That happened in the 1 year at 8th grade.
wow.
So you can see
The
there were
difference-
some changes
The
made.
attention that you would get individually if you're all in one room together,
One
learning the
room
same thing at the
together.
same time,
Working,
what a difference. But you
Yes.
know, the other thing about, Raymond mentioned this also, you got more than one class in in one room, you learn how to concentrate on what you're.
yes, that's right.
You did.
You don't worry about the distractions around you,
Yeah.
you're concentrating on what you're in front of you,
Right.
you're working on that. It made a difference, I think, further down the road.
Yes,
Being able to concentrate on a particular thing and
Right.
not letting surroundings bother you too much, because this is what you're learning right here in front of you now.
There were many humorous things happened while we were there too at Farmdale. You know, it's amazing to me. One time, it seemed to me, one time a skunk got into the building
Oh, yes.
somewhere.
It's raining,
In the library or something or
the
other.
anteroom, it's in the
And
anteroom.
they got into the anteroom. The skunk was in there. That really created
Oh,
problems.
God, yes.
And then another thing was that they used to have a great huge stove in the back. I can remember a stove.
Oh, in
And
the
one
room,
of
in
the cold
big
days,
room.
boy,
Yeah.
everybody kind of get around that stove because I kind of heat that place up. We had that to think about all the time.
Good.
yeah.
There are other things that, you know, fortunately, there are floods that came at that time of the year. We couldn't go to school. Poor Farmdale School would be surrounded by water. We couldn't get into it. And it just
So
had to wait.
remember where the bathrooms were?
Oh,
Yeah,
the
Outside?
outside, as if it had been an outhouse.
I think that flush started,
They
I'm
did
not
it.
sure.
We
But
did.
that's about it. They're sitting out the girls on one side, the boys on the other, in the same building, so
Yeah.
to speak, you know.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, and then we also had the tank house where we, remembered? when
Yeah,
I-
the tank
Owls
Oh,
got-
yes.
The owls got
The
up
owl
there,
got
but we
the
used to
tank
play Annie over in that little building, like that, and, throw the ball back and forth,
Wait,
and.
Annie, over, I haven't heard that for years.
Well,
Kids
I
don't know
remember
what that means,
No.
what is it, Alma?
Well, you have a ball, you throw it over, and if you catch it, you can come around. If you don't catch it, then you can't come around.
Well, you had to yell, Annie, Annie over, there comes the
Throw it over
ball.
the building.
Yeah,
That's
you
right.
had to,
You
yeah.
know where it was
Yeah, there was
coming
no points or anything, nobody, you know, but I remember that distinctly, playing Annie over, and then we forgot, you know, those beautiful swings.
The big swings.
Oh,
They
the
guys.
had-
swings
they
out
had-
there.
I
Oh,
think the
boy.
seats were that wide
Yep,
and that
big
thick, like
Yep.
wood,
Big
wood seats with
Yep.
chain.
Long
Well,
chain.
My life's
I never-
ambition at Farmville, and I quit by the time I was in the 3rd grade, but I wanted somebody to push me hard enough, because I wanted to swing over the top. And man, you get pretty close once in a while, you get somebody to push you.
You
and
imagine
push
the disaster that would ever happen.
It did,
There
one
were,
person
it
that
did
I know
happen,
of
it
did.
had happened.
Yeah,
the Bacon, Vera Bacon did do it.
she did.
She was in the 8th grade and she was like a boy. She did all farm work, the only boy they had. And she did the work as a boy. She was so strong and she was very tall. And she said, I can do that. I can
Really?
get over it. And we all stood around and watched. And she kept pumping that thing and pumping the swing, and all of a sudden she sailed over and it went over.
Good
We
Lord.
didn't do it again because the chains begin to
Yeah,
come
yeah.
right away.
break
They're
up,
so
yeah,
heavy.
They get locked.
The chains are so heavy, they just started pulling her down immediately. So it wasn't a nice big round circle.
Swing,
She came
no.
over and just down.
That's right.
It was very dangerous.
Boy, I'll say.
But it was the tallest swing I've ever seen.
Oh, right. I agree.
They took those down.
And there were
by
no
some-
restrictions.
No,
And
didn't matter.
No, we
they didn't have
stood on-
soft little stuff underneath it. How many times did you fall out of that swing too, you know? And it was just muddy or it was just dirt, hard old dirt down below the swings, at least in my
Oh,
memory.
yeah.
Swing out and jump at the other end.
Oh, and jump out of it, yeah.
Lots of fun.
Lots of
Well,
fun.
they did have then the little bar thing with the big heavy wood
Then we
bar.
had a
thing.
seesaw out there by the
The
3rd grade.
seesaw thing.
The seesaw.
And you're supposed to sit on it and swing back and forth. Now, Mary Payson and I would stand on it and swing back and forth. No one ever stopped us, we could have killed ourselves.
I
No
don't
one
remember
ever said
anybody-
anything.
No, I don't remember
We
anybody.
made the thing go up even with the bars. It just was
You know,
hot.
the only rule about, that I remember, that was really about the play equipment was you couldn't be you had to be in the 4th grade to be able to do the jungle gym.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right.
The
Yes.
bars.
The jungle gym, yeah, those bars outside the 8th grade room, out there on that porch.
It's
I
a-
could not go out there except after school. When I
Like the
went for
horizontal
my-
ladder. You could, like a
Yeah.
monkey
Yeah, it
bar.
was a horizontal
Yeah,
line, and you could not use those until you were in the 4th
Why'd
grade.
you do
That
that?
made me very upset. I'd sneak out there after waiting for mother when I was in the 3rd grade
I
or
didn't-
whatever,
I didn't
and
know
go out and
that.
use those, yeah. Yeah,
Those
well,
were the equipment that we
That
had.
That's
was
right.
the-
But I don't remember teachers being out there supervising. Maybe they were.
There's more than one broken arm on those
Oh,
ladders.
yeah.
oh,
sure.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
That's right.
Because, but I don't
Oh,
remember that.
yes, there
And
were.
I think we had a bell, they rang the bell, what,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
we had no
There was a
electric
bell.
bell.
It was
They
a
rang
bell.
the
It's a bell, they rang the bell,
That's right.
yeah, and so,
Come in after recess.
yes.
School
that was-
started.
And then we brought our lunches.
Or if we had one, in
Yeah.
the wintertime, we just put our potato or
Well, I
apple
remember
on the
though, at
stove.
one time they started getting subsidies, the
That's
food
right.
was given to us by
Yes.
the government.
That's right.
Yeah,
We
the
had
federal
oranges-
government.
Oranges and bananas.
Yes, we
Yes.
did,
It was
And
wonderful.
That was the
apples
first
and
one.
stuff like
Apples
that.
and oranges, I can remember that
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
yeah. we did.
Government
Yeah,
Yeah.
government, and
Yep.
milk.
and milk.
Yeah, we always got
I
milk.
remember milk.
But I also remember another story about Mother and Farmdale. She, the man that came out, Mr. Morris, came out to deliver the butane or whatever.
Oh,
it is.
yes.
And they became very good friends. I mean, for years, he came out and delivered that, and Mother was there, and they would talk and chat. And I remember her, like,
Who was that?
Mr. Morris.
Charlie Morris.
Charlie
Oh.
Morris, always
The
brought
Signal
the-
Oil
I was
Company.
just gonna say, didn't you work for him at the Signal Oil?
I did, yeah.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that was another kind of thing that doesn't happen these days. I mean, the bringing the supply to the school
Right.
so it could operate. And because we only warmth we had was that big stove in the,
That's
in the
right, big
room.
wooden, real
And I
cold in
don't, I
that thing.
guess we had one in the primary room also.
We did
but
have
I
one, a
remember
brown
the
one,
big
I remember
in
that one very clearly.
Yeah,
Where it was and
that's the
everything.
way we
It was,
heated
it was,
things.
it was butane.
Um,
Well, it wasn't, it was oil.
It was oil.
Diesel, oh, yes.
Diesel oil.
Oil?
It was diesel
Yeah,
oil,
okay,
yes.
whatever, but
Fuel oil.
anyway, that was the only heating that we had, and
There was no cooling either.
no.
Open
no,
the windows,
no,
hope for
we
a
opened
breeze.
the windows, but the other thing about Lois, we were talking about walking to school, that was another thing, that we walked home with the same kids, all the way down Mission, but Tom would have to walk all the way to the end of Mission, and Shirley Williams would walk all the way down, everybody walked, and
Yep.
so you walked together. And I can remember,
Everybody.
yeah, the days were hot or cold or whatever, but I remember that we.
Nobody picked you up in a car and brought you home?
No way.
Nobody was waiting out there for you
Oh,
to be
God,
picked up,
yeah.
or
Oh,
drop you
yeah.
off in the
No,
morning.
that's
or-
right.
yeah,
It
yeah.
was, and the only time we ever got, the only time we ever got a ride home was when we finally moved into town, and then we had to have a ride home, but other
Yeah.
than that, but everybody walked, and those were, I remember even coming into town, and then I walked home from school, and it was the same thing that we did.
Yeah.
So this walking was making friends and going with your friends and saying you're gonna come by the house, you're gonna come over, and, those are things that were relationships. But my 5 years at Farmdale, I can remember the teachers, which I had the three, Mother was one of them. But I remember the rooms that we were in, and we talked about an anteroom, and an anteroom, you don't have anteroom.
I just started to ask about the anteroom. Who knows what an anteroom
Right.
is, you know? Hey, we kept the balls in there, we kept things in there. Sometimes, yeah, that was the purpose,
But
kept
it
some
was really
supplies.
more of a coat room than anything.
Well, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You wonder, how did we get supplies? Wasn't there somebody that drove in with some kind of a truck or something to leave the paper? How did we get paper? How did
Paper
we
and
get,
pencils.
yeah, how did we get that stuff? We only got them at the beginning of the year, it seemed
That's
like,
right.
but I might be wrong. We didn't have any excessive amount by by June, when school was out, the pencils were getting limited. Paper was probably getting limited, art supplies, how did we get that
They all
stuff?
came from the county.
Well, I know it
County
came from the
schools,
county,
and
but
it had
how
to
did,
be-
and there's some vague memory of mother showing up at some time in the end of summer or whatever, because they were gonna deliver supplies. But I don't know if that's,
Remember
how
when-
did we get the stuff? I don't remember, nobody had cars to go in town to pick them up, they had to bring them out to us, but I just think today, you just order them or do whatever, but, how did we get all that stuff?
The other thing about school with Farmdale, we haven't talked a little bit about it, about the extracurricular subjects that we had, which was music. That was
Music?
one.
Yep.
And I don't remember any art. Of course, that was far field from me, but anyway, but the music lady that came, and then the hearing person that came,
Yeah.
and
Talking
the
about,
health
yes.
person that came, but we all loved the music lady. But
Yep.
I remember her Mrs.
Bradford.
Bradford, and she would say, she always said when she started, and Bob's right, she taught us all kinds of music, wonderful classic music
Classic,
that I have remembered today. But she would always say, her first thing would say, "What color are you?"
Yeah.
And you had to return to her, "I am blue." And she did that all the time. And that's the way she started her lesson. And then
That's
she would, the music that we got was very wonderful.
We learned what the staff
Yeah.
was.
I just started to
Yeah.
say that. We knew what treble clef and the bass
We
clef
learned
and
all
what the
that
staff,
stuff.
well, we knew what a quarter note was, and so we
That's
learned
right.
those things
Yeah,
about,
we did.
and I was only in the first, second, and third grade there, but I remember her teaching you, I do remember the treble clef and the bass clef and the staff and those notes,
Yeah.
and
That's
what the
right.
flag meant on it and stuff,
Yeah.
and there were just things about that I learned from her. She was an
She
interesting
was
woman.
very good.
And I
Yeah.
think she came for years. I think if you
Oh,
had
yes.
her, and
I-
Bob had her, she came for years from the county. She had several schools, I'm sure.
I'm sure she did.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't remember the health person coming.
I
Mrs.
do.
Riacetta,
Oh,
Mrs.
okay.
Riacetta. Wasn't
that
that her
her
name?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't remember her coming, but
What did she do?
The
She would
nurse?
just check you out with tonsils and ears and eyes.
Yeah.
She
Did she
was
give us
very strict.
immunization?
She would take each one out the porch and go all over our body. She was really something. But it was a wonderful service.
well, yes, it all was from the county.
Yes.
It was, and then the hearing. Did she do the hearing
No.
too?
Did the hearing, and then and the vision, and listened to our heart and did all kinds of things. And then we also had all those free shots,
Yeah, that's
like
what I
diphtheria shots, smallpox.
I got my
We were
first
all
shot
given free
when
shots.
came to, I don't know why I was there, but I was in the city schools. That's the school that Grandma taught at.
Oh, LeGrand.
I got my
LeGrand
first
at
diphtheria shot.
LeConte.
And talk about the big long needle too, boy.
yeah.
I was scared to
Yeah.
death.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's
had
a
to
whopper.
get that shot.
Right,
Right in the left arm, boy.
yes.
But I got in there. Why?
You didn't have it at Farmdale?
No, I did not. I
I did.
remember that for sure.
I do remember, they did come out at that time. And they were, yes, it was an
There was no
awful
question
lot.
about whether you could get the shot or not. You got the shot.
That's exactly
Nobody-
right.
that was it.
There was
No
never
question
any
about-
written note whether you could do
Religion
it
is
or
my
not.
religion. I don't give the truth by religion. There never a question about that.
I know it.
No.
The
Nothing
smallpox
like
shot.
people saying, I'm not having my child
That's right.
immunized by any,
That's right.
this would be
Autism? What is autism?
a suit brought against the
That's
county
right.
for
You can't question that kind of
immunizing
stuff.
the
No,
kid.
and we all got the smallpox.
Oh, you got those periodically, about every 7 years, you have to go get scraped again, or shot. You got those every year. I remember going to city schools, and I got one in the 4th grade, I remember in the 6th grade, the 8th
No one
grade.
ever objected,
No,
Sarah.
you just stood
Not
in
like
line out
today.
in the cafeteria, and they scrape your arm and give you your shot.
Yeah, that's it. No one ever said, my folks are not allowing me to have any shots.
Never any question. We always say, hey, did you get a scar? What's yours look like?
That's
You know,
right.
you'd all compare these things, you know. Did
We
you-
all had we all had a TB scratch on our arm.
Oh, yeah, we had
That's
all
when they caught
kinds of
Sarah and me.
all
But
kinds of.
you wanna talk a little about the
Now, health,
health?
Well, let me
Oh,
say something
going
about
into health.
Farmdale.
okay.
Okay, I had mother for 3 years. I'd gone to the city schools to kindergarten and had Mrs. Taylor there. She loved her. We all did the nice things. We went out to Farmdale, where I now have those 3 grades in that one room. And it was hard for me. I had to see my mother talking to other kids and being friends. It was hard. I'd have to share my mother with other kids that I didn't really know about. You know, those were not easy things to do.
Sarah.
It was,
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time crying. And also, I had that horrible handicap of being left-handed.
That's right.
And that was and there are lots of things that I learned about being left-handed that I could, that were just totally different. And my mother, we had these big windows on that west side, in